Today we are going to the main lesson for today, and we are learning about if statements. So I'm going to take you through the if statement in general, the syntax, and we are going to look at if else statement. We are going to look at if else if and else statement. We are going to look at nested if statement. And along the lines, we are going to learn how to use the word pass in if statement. So starting with the first um, tutorial, we are going to see now the general syntax for an if statement is you start with the word if, okay, then you continue with a certain condition, then you end with what? A semicolon. Now, if this condition is true, the computer should perform this code. Remember, this code has been indented under the if sign. It is not in line with the if sign. Okay, it has some indentation. Okay, now the indentation simply means that this code here is under the if sign, or it will only run, this code will only run if this condition is true. Okay, so let me give you a practical example. So looking at the syntax, it says start with what? An if. So let's say we have age is equal to, let's say, input. Okay, we want to take input from the user, so we say enter your age. Okay, or better still, maybe we want our input to come to the next line, so we say enter your age backslash n. That means next line, then the greater than symbol, just to show an arrow. Okay, just to show an arrow for entering the data. So this backslash n means that whatever that continues from here, send it to what? The next line. Okay, so once I have age, the user is going to input the age, so I'm going to say if age is what? Is greater than or equal to 18. When I press enter, I get an indentation. It means whatever command I'm going to enter falls under the if sign. So if age is greater than or equal to 18, print you are an adult. Okay, now let us test it out and see how it works. So when I run it, it says enter your age. So let's say 56. It gives us an error. It says the error is on what? Line what? 8. Now the reason why we have the error is saying that type error greater than or equal to not supported between instances of what? Strings and integers. So it means one of them is a string, one of them is an integer. So when I look here and I hover over the age is a string and the 18 is what? An integer. And um you cannot compare 56, the data we input was 56. You cannot compare 56 as a string to 18 as an integer. Both of them has to be some form of numbers, whether floats or integers, to use the comparator operators on them. So I use my typecasting technique by calling the int function and putting in the value of age to convert it to what? An integer, then make a comparison. So when I click here to run it, say 56, and we get an output, and the output we get is you are an adult. So once this condition here is true, okay, this will run. Now if it is false, let's say 14, it does nothing. We've not told it to do anything. So this code will only run if this condition is true. So it's like your mom tells you, go to the shop. If the bread costs 10 cedi, buy it. She didn't say anything else. So if you go and the bread doesn't cost 10 cedi, you don't do anything about it. Okay? Because you were not told to buy it. We were only told that if it costs 10 cedi, then buy it. Okay? So from here, I also want to make a clear distinction. So let us say print thank you, print thank you. Okay. Now, if you realize this print is not directly under the if, it's in line with the if statement. So it will run whether the if statement is true or false. It is not subject to the condition of the if statement. But once you indent it, it's now subject to the conditions of the if statement. And if it is like this, it is not subject to the conditions of the if statement. And you can see this line here. This line, this line here is indicating that anything here is subject to the conditions of the if statement. Now let me run it and let's see. So let's say 34. You realize that 34 is greater than or equal to 18, and therefore that condition is true, and therefore this action took place, and this action also took place. So it's printed you are an adult, thank you. Now in an instance where let's say 12, it's this condition becomes false. When you convert 12, which is a string, into an integer, it is still less than 18. So this condition is false and this won't be printed. And since this won't be printed, this code is done. The next line is empty. Nothing happens. Then the next line is another code which is independent of the print function, and therefore it will still run. Okay. So since you've taken note of that, now let us jump right into the if and the else statements. Now let's look at their syntax. With their syntax, if condition semicolon, then you code, then you continue with else semicolon, then you code. Okay, so the conditions are similar, except that this time around we are adding an else part. Okay, and the else is in line with the if, but the code that falls under the if section is indented, and the code that falls under the else section is indented. Remember, the else section doesn't need a condition. Okay, so let us look at a practical example. We can still use this example above. So let us copy this one, Control C. Okay, let me retype them to make you understand it properly. So to type a simple if statement, it is this way. If, let's take in our age, input, enter your age. Okay, so when we enter our age, we have if the integer version of the age is greater than or equal to 18, print what? You are an adult. Okay, else meaning that if it is not true, so if age is not greater than or equal to 18, else you don't need to provide a condition. Else print you are a minor. Okay, so this two if statements, this is a condition. If this is true, then do this. Else meaning that this is false, come and do this instead. Okay, so both of the codes will not run. Okay, in any given situation, both of the codes will not run. only one of the two of them will run. So at this point, we want the computer to perform a particular action, but not just any action, but an action based on a particular condition. And that's where we use what? The if statement. So we have if, then condition, semicolon, the next line, indentation with four space. It's either indentation or use four space. Then you give your codes. Else, if those ones fail, if the condition in the first one is not true, then do this instead. So that brings us to the end of the if and the else statements. Okay, if and the else statement. But then if I type another code here, say print thank you, it doesn't, it's not affected by the if statement because it's in line with the if statement and not under the if statement or subject to the if statement's condition. You are only subject to the if statement condition when you are indented under it. You are not subject to the if statement condition when you are not um indented under it. Okay, so we'll end that part on the if and the else statement. And now let us jump to the if, else if, and the else. Now this word here is technically else if, but in Python we write elif as else if. Now sometimes you may not have one condition that if is not a boy, else he's a girl. Or let's say if gender is not equal to boy, semicolon, next line. Print we thought so, else print yay we had a girl. Do you get it? So the if and the else is used when you are dealing with two conditions. It's either A or B, black or white. So if it's not A, else it's B. Okay, that kind of thing. But the else if condition can be used for multiple conditions. So the syntax is simple. You say if, then you state your condition, then under that condition you give your action code, leave a space, then you say else, you state another condition, and under that condition you give a code, a certain series of action. Then you state another if condition and you give an action. Just like the normal if, but this time around it's what? Elif, meaning else if. So you start with if, then else if, and you can go on with the else if until you are done. I don't mean you should limit yourself to these two else if. You can go on and on and on with a lot of else if until you are done. And secondly, it's not compulsory to end with an else. So because you started with if and there's else if, you have to end with what? An else. No, you can end with an else if and there will be nothing for else. Now let us use this idea to solve a traffic light problem. So let us say now we will ask the driver to what? Enter the color of the light of the traffic light. Okay, so we are asking the user to enter the color of the traffic light. So let us use some logic to run the code. So light if light is red, print stop. Okay, now we can also do it if light, I want to demonstrate something, is equal to what? Yellow, print get ready. And if light, W equal to green, print go. So you realize that for every condition, we've written three separate conditions. So if the light is red, do that, do print stop. If the light is yellow, print get ready. If the light is green, print what? Go. But then these three commands are not connected. Okay, they are not linked to each other. They are independent if statements of their own. Okay, and to connect them, that's where the else if statement comes in handy. So we can say else if, then this one too is else if, that's elif for them. Then the last one you can say that else print, the color does not exist. Okay, so we are saying that if light is red, print stop. Else if light is yellow, print get ready. Else if light is green, print what? Go. Else print the color does not exist. Okay, the color does not exist. So this is a simple if statement. Okay, that shows you how the computer judges a certain condition, and if it is true, the computer goes in there to do whatever it's doing, then comes out. Okay, so that is the if statement. Now let us look at, now with the first example I did, where we had only if. Okay, when we have only if, now when the computer runs this command, when it sees red, it will try to interpret it and run the commands if only it satisfies them. Now when the computer, then from here the computer jumps to the next line, which is empty. Okay, and then from there the computer jumps to the next line, and with the next line it's about yellow, even though they are related, but because there is no else if, the computer sees both of them as separate. Okay, okay, so we have print there is no such color. Okay, there is no such color. Okay, so when we run this and we put green, we get what? Go. When we run this again and we put pink, there is no color. So this is how you deal with the if and the else if statement and the else. Okay, so lastly, let us look at the word pass. Okay, so sometimes you may be, pass simply means, hey computer, just move on. Okay, don't do anything, just move on to the next thing. Okay, so that is simply the pass. Okay, so sometimes you may use it to hold on to a place, like you can have age is equal to 40. Now if the integer version of the age, okay, is greater than or equal to 2, pass, else print age. Let's just say something. So if this condition is true, the computer should just pass or move on. So sometimes the pass comes in handy, because where the pass is written, you are supposed to write codes over there. But then for now, sometimes you may not have the codes at the moment, and you don't want to have that red line, so you just put pass over there to hold the place for you. And at the same time too, you are learning a lot from this course, so I don't want to stress you that much with these other words. So I'll end the video here. Okay, I'll end the video here and make another video separately on nested if statements. Okay, have a nice evening.